Hello viewers, welcome to K Diagnostics. Dio here. We are here to look at a Honda Odyssey. The complaint on this vehicle is the check engine light remains on and the engine is shaking. So I am at my uncle's shop. We are here to help him out. He has a lot of cars, so he couldn't get to this one. So he called me so I can look at it for him. So the first thing we're gonna do is we're gonna confirm the complaint, and then we're going to connect a scan tool to the vehicle to see why the check engine light is remaining on. So now let's confirm the customer's complaint. Alright, so I got the key on. I'm going to start the engine. So right there, as you can hear, the engine is running and it's shaking a little bit. So the check engine light remained on. Customer's complaint confirmed. So now I'm going to turn off the engine. I'm going to turn the key on. I'm going to get the scan tool connected, and then I'll bring you guys back up so we can see what kind of trouble codes we have in the engine computer. Alright, so I got the scan tool connected to the vehicle. So let's see what kind of trouble codes we have in memory. So right here, we have two trouble codes, P0302, Misfire, number 2 cylinder. And then the other one is P0305, Misfire, number 5 cylinder. So basically cylinder number 2 and cylinder number 5 are misfiring. So this is pretty self-explanatory. The combustion event in cylinder 2 and cylinder 5 is not occurring properly. So now the next step is going to be looking at some misfire counters. Let's see if we have some misfire counters here in the data. So let's go to data. I hope we have some misfire counters here. So let's see. There's nothing here. So no misfire counts. Okay, that's helpful. Let's back out of here. And let's go to generic functions. And we're gonna look at mode 6. Let's go to mode 6. Hopefully we're gonna have some misfire counts here. So we can confirm that cylinder 2 or cylinder 5 are misfiring. Well, there are two cylinders misfiring right now. Cylinder 2 and cylinder number 5. Let me look at these trouble codes again. So 2 and 5. Did they do a tune-up on this? What did they do to this car? Do you know?
I don't know. I don't know, because the guy, I think he didn't take it to the shop. He said he put a coil pack.
He put a coil there. Okay. That's helpful. Alright guys, so now let's look at the data so we can see what kind of misfire we're dealing with, because the info on mode 6 is not really helpful. Okay. So
I think he just put his coil pack in there.
he just put a coil there. Okay, well, okay, let me find out where cylinder number 5 and 2 are. Let's go to the generic side and look at some data, because I want to look at our fuel trim numbers while the engine is running to see if we're going to have high positive numbers or high negative numbers. If we have high positive numbers, our problem will most likely be on the fuel delivery side. And then if we have high negative numbers, our problem will most likely be on the ignition side. So let's go to data. All right, so here is our list of data. So I'm gonna start the engine. The engine is definitely shaking. We're still in open loop. So we're in closed loop right now, and we're starting to trim right now. So as you can see, we have 4% on the short term. We have on bank 1, we have, so bank 1 sensor 2 percentage, bank 1 sensor 1 percentage, long term is 0, short term over here is 3%. So our fuel trim numbers are normal. We don't have fuel trim numbers that are out of spec, so our fuel trim numbers are normal. So now what I want to do is I want to do a cylinder drop test. I want to find the cylinder layout so we can know where cylinder number 5 and 2 are. We're going to do a drop test. We can disconnect the coils to see if the coils are working, and if the coils are not working, we can actually swap coils. We can get a coil from a good cylinder and put it on cylinder 2 or cylinder 5 to see what's going to happen. Okay, so let's back out of here. So I'm gonna turn off the engine. Before I go look up the cylinder layout, let's do a compression test, but this is gonna be a sound test. We're gonna step on the accelerator pedal all the way to the floor. This should put it in clear flood mode. I'm gonna crank it and the engine shouldn't start. I hope this one has the clear flood mode feature. As I crank it, we're gonna listen to the sound of the engine. We wanna listen to the cadence of the engine. We don't want any inconsistency on the way the engine sounds. So let's try that. Oh, this one doesn't have clear flood. No. Well, this one looks like it doesn't have clear flood mode. Well, the engine sounds pretty good. Let's go find where cylinder number 2 and 5 live, and then we're gonna swap the coils. So I will do that and then I'll bring you guys back up. All right guys, so we're here under the hood. Cylinder number 2 and 5 are, so cylinder, let me look at it. So I just wrote this down. So this is, so that's the front. So this is the front of the vehicle. So cylinder number 5 is this one over here. This is 5, and then 2 is in the back. So 2 is back there. So 5 here, 2 back there. And when I'm looking at these coils, this one looks slightly different than the other two. So it looks like this coil has been replaced. Let's remove this engine cover so we can swap these coils. So the first thing we're gonna do, we're gonna swap the coil on cylinder 5. We're gonna put it over here to see if the Misfire is gonna follow the coil. If the Misfire follows the coil, then the problem is just the coil. So we're gonna remove this engine cover. So I'm gonna disconnect this coil over here. It looks like someone has been here. I wonder if they were checking this wiring. So let's swap these coils first to see what's gonna happen. Alright, so let's swap this coil. Because if cylinder number 5 continues to misfire, then I'll go towards the spark plug. Man, look at this. Oh, yeah. This is not good. Okay, let's put it right in here.
You don't need to bolt it down, do you?
No. Yeah. not tighten it, but at least
Sitting there.
get it a little bit snug, yeah. Alright, so we swapped the coils, so now I'm gonna go inside the vehicle and start the engine. Now let's see what's gonna happen here. Alright, so we swapped the coil. I'm going to erase the trouble codes first. Permanent codes. So let's clear them. So as you can see, we no longer have any codes. So now I'm going to go and start the engine. I'm gonna go under the hood and do a cylinder drop test.
Move.
It's still running. The cord is not back yet. Let's see if by disconnecting this, there's a little difference when I unplug this one. But when I unplug this, nothing happens. A little bit that. So there is a RPM drop slightly though when I unplug this one and that one. Let's try the ones in the back. Yeah. That one is working. It's good. Okay, that one works. Okay. Well, it looks like this one is not really working. See that? No change. Now, this is cylinder number 5, and it looks like someone tried to check this wiring. So let's try to check the wiring with the test light, because maybe we're not getting a signal to that coil. Okay, so test light lights. Now, based on the other wires, our power wire should be. We're gonna make sure there's power and ground at this coil. So I have my test light connected to ground. So we're gonna disconnect this connector. The first wire here is gonna be our control. This is gonna be the ground, and this should be the power supply wire. So when I touch this, as you can see, my test light doesn't light. Now let's do the same thing on the other coil over here. I'm gonna disconnect this one. And when I touch the first wire, as you can see, my test light lights. Okay? So we have power here. Okay? But on this misfiring cylinder, when I disconnect its connector, as you can see, we're missing power here. So now we're gonna check the ground. I'm gonna switch my test light to positive. So my test light is now connected to battery positive. The wire in the middle should be a ground, as you can see. test lights. So we have power and ground at this connector. Now, when I touch this one here, it also lights. So there's ground over here, but there's no power. So this cord here is missing power. Okay, so that's good. We know the problem. The coil here is missing power. There's no power going to this coil. What we could do is we can jump power here to see if this engine is going to run better, and then we will trace down. I'm sure there's an open in this wiring over here. So the power supply wire is not getting power. Okay, yeah, so that's it. We're missing power at this coil. So I'm gonna turn off the engine so we can trace down the power supply wire to this coil. All right, so we got the key on. I just wanna make sure that everybody's following along with what we're doing. So this coil over here is not receiving power. There's ground. I mean, this is a 3-wire coil. So one wire is going to have power, the other one is going to have ground, and the third wire is going to have the control coming from the computer. So basically, right now with the key on, we should have power and ground on all these coils, okay? So if I disconnect the first coil over here, now I have my test light connected to ground. When I touch each terminal here, so first one, test light lights, we go to the second one, nothing. Third one, nothing. So we have power on this first wire here. So we're gonna reconnect it. Now when we go to the second connector, so the second coil, so we touch our test light here, nothing happens. Second one, nothing. Third one, nothing. So we are missing power at this coil. Now when we disconnect the third one, we have our test light connected to ground still. So right there, test light lights. This middle wire here should be a ground. Okay, so now let's show the battery. So I'm gonna swap my test light. So I'm gonna connect my test light to battery positive. Okay, so now we're gonna redo the same test. So on this coil, now we're gonna test the middle wire. So since my test light is connected to power, if I touch this, if there's ground on this wire, the test light should light. As you can see, the test light is lit. We're gonna reconnect it. Now let's do this one. We're gonna touch the middle wire. So test light lights. So the coil is receiving ground, okay, because this is the coil that's not firing, right? Mm-hmm. So it's receiving ground, but it's missing power. Now what we could do is we can get a jumper wire and jump the power, okay, between this coil and that one. That's just going to be a temporary fix, okay? But the fix will be tracing down this power wire. I'm sure there's an open somewhere in the circuit, because if you check this coil also has a ground. Okay, so we're missing power at this coil over here. Now I'm gonna see if I can find a jumper wire so we can jump this really quickly. I'm sure once we jump this vehicle will run a lot better, and then we will look at the wiring diagram so we can trace down this power supply wire. Thank you, Mr. Tenga. So yeah, we gotta trace down this wire. I'm sure there's an open somewhere. Hopefully there's a connector. Hopefully there's a connector somewhere we can see. But in the meantime, because we can actually jump power, we can get power from this coil over here and jump it over here, because these coils get power from a fuse, and they're all this is a shared power. They all get power from one fuse. That fuse can be in that fuse box, so I don't know where it is. We can double check that. But right now, let's jump power here first to see what happens. I will do that, and then I'll bring you guys back up. Alright guys, so I'm gonna use this jumper wire to jump the power between these two coils. So this is gonna go right here. So we're getting power from this coil over here. I'm gonna go ahead and start the car. Let's see how it's gonna run now. Can you tell the difference? see now?
Yeah.
Can you tell the difference?
Which one?
You see how it's running? It runs better now? Yeah. So now we have power here. Let's show the light. Power here and power there. So every time I send power here, the engine runs better. So I'm just jumping power between this wire here and that wire. And you see how it's running better? So when I lose power, it kind of shakes a little bit. I don't know if you can tell though. Can you tell the difference?
Yeah.
Yeah. You see how it's smoother now?
Yeah.
All right, guys. So I'm gonna leave this right over here. You know, you see how the idle is better because we are basically getting power from this coil and we're sending it to the other coil. So I'm gonna turn off the engine and then I'll show you what's going on. We're gonna talk about it again and then I'll just end this video here because at this point we have to trace down this power wire and see where the open is, and then once we fix the open, this vehicle will be fixed. So now I'm gonna go inside. As you can see right now, it's running better because I have to hold this back probe tool because we're sending power from this coil to the other. So I'm gonna go inside the car and turn off the engine. All right, this is what we have to do. Let me remove this jumper wire. Yeah, so this coil is not receiving power, so we gotta trace down the wiring and see where they both connect, and then we gotta find out. Or Mr. Tenga, what you could do is we can just connect these two wires together somewhere here in the connector.
That's it.
You know, yeah.
It's 2003.
Yeah, I mean it's not really recommended, but we can do that just to get by.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Because they're both coming from a fuse. So this one
It'd be the same.
and the other one, yeah, it will be the same. And then yeah, so that's what's causing this engine to misfire. Okay, instead of like tracing down the whole.
That's for 2000. I'll do it on the 2000.
Yeah. All right, guys. So we're gonna try to trace down this harness so we can find the open. But if we can find the open, we can just run a power wire to this coil, or we can just connect the power wire of this coil to the power wire of the other coil because they all come from one fuse. Okay, so I'm gonna show you the wiring diagram so you can see again how these are wired, and then we'll end this video. Okay, so now let's go look at the wiring diagram. Alright guys, so here's the wiring diagram of the engine performance of the vehicle we are working on. These are the ignition coils. So the misfiring cylinder was cylinder number 5, so this cylinder over here. And as cylinder number 5 was misfiring, it also affected cylinder number 2, which is its companion cylinder. Okay, now the first thing we did was we did a cylinder drop test. We disconnected all these coils. As I was disconnecting the coils, the engine RPM slightly changed, but when I disconnected the coil on cylinder number 5, nothing happened. So the RPM didn't change, which told me that this cylinder here wasn't contributing to our engine performance. So my uncle told me that the coil on this cylinder had already been replaced. I just wanted to swap the coils around to see maybe the coil that was replaced was also defective, because I've seen coils being defective out of the box. So we swapped coils around. The cylinder number 5 was still misfiring. So at that point I shifted my focus to the wiring. As you can see, this here is a 3-wire coil. So there is supposed to be a ground, a power, and a control coming from the computer. Now the first thing I did was I wanted to check power and ground at the coil first. So I connected my test light to battery positive. I attached this black wire with a yellow tracer. There was no power on the coil that goes to cylinder number 5. But when I attached the test light to the same wire on the other cylinder, the test light lit. So there was power at the other cylinder, but there was no power at the coil that goes to cylinder number 5. Then I checked the ground, so all the coils were receiving ground, but this coil over here on cylinder number 5 wasn't receiving power. Now, if we follow this wire, this yellow wire, if we follow it right there, you will see that it goes to a junction. Okay, there's a junction here, and then if you look closely here on the left side of the junction, there's a fuse right there, fuse number 7. It's a 15 amp fuse. So this fuse supplies power to this junction, and then this junction then sends power to all the coils, because if we follow all these wires, they all go to the coils. So this one goes to this coil over here, this one goes to this coil, and then the third one goes to that coil, and then this one. So I already knew that, I mean, these are pretty much how most ignition coils are wired. They all have power from either a fuse under the hood or a computer. But since this is an older vehicle, I knew that all these coils were getting power from a fuse. Now, since we didn't have power here, I knew that there was an open between the coil and this junction over here. Okay, so that's basically what we did. We traced down this wire, we found the open. I mean, it took us longer to find where the open was. I didn't film the process of fixing this wire, so we just fixed the wire, and now the vehicle started running better. So once we got power going to this coil, the vehicle started running better. Actually, before we could even find the open, the other test I did was I jumped this wire. So I used a jumper wire. I bypassed this whole wire with a jumper wire. So I went between the coil that was next to it, because all these wires are getting power from this fuse. So if you jump the power wire on this coil and you jump it to the power wire of the other coil, it's basically not gonna cause anything. Okay, so I jumped these two wires together with a jumper wire, and the car started running better. So that told me that the problem was just the missing power on the coil on cylinder number 5. So we found the open, we fixed it, and the vehicle was fixed. So it was as simple as that. Okay, so this is basically what I was doing, in case you had questions about what I was doing. So this is how these coils are wired. If you trace down this first wire, you will notice that it goes to the computer. Okay, and then the second wire, as you can see, they're all connected together. This is the ground wire, and then the third one is a power supply wire, which goes to this junction here that goes to the fuse. Okay, so this is how we were able to find what the problem was. We checked the wiring and we fixed the wiring, and now this vehicle is fixed. So now let's go back to the vehicle so we can wrap up this video. Alright guys, so that's all. I'm gonna leave this right over here. This was a quick and easy one. The problem on this vehicle was a open in the power supply wire of coil number 5. So this coil wasn't firing, so that was also causing the other cylinder, which is cylinder number 2. So I'm pretty sure cylinder 5, the companion cylinder of cylinder 5 is cylinder number 2. So since cylinder 5 was misfiring, it was also affecting cylinder number 2. Okay, so after fixing the power supply to this coil, this vehicle will be fixed, because we already confirmed that by jumping the power supply wire of this coil to this one. The engine ran fine. So I'm not gonna show you the repair. I'm sure once we fix that wire, this will be fixed. So I'm gonna leave this right over here. I hope you liked the video. I'm actually outside, okay, as you can see. I just came to bail out my uncle here at his shop. Alright, and it's a Saturday afternoon, so I gotta get out of here. I'm glad this was a pretty quick one. So I hope you liked the video. If you did like the video, give it a thumbs up. If you didn't, give it a thumb down. But if you do, you gotta tell me why, so we can make better videos in the future. If this is your first time here, subscribe to the channel. Ring the bell so you can get notified every time I upload a new video. If you have any comments, questions, criticism, leave them in the comment box. Thanks for watching, guys. See you next time. Alright guys, so we fixed the wire. I'm just gonna give you a little bit of a bonus footage here. So I had to open up the whole wiring and we found an open somewhere up here. So we fixed the wire. Okay, so now everything is reconnected. We now have power at the power supply wire of this coil. So now I'm gonna go inside the vehicle and start the engine. So let's start the engine and see how this runs. So the engine is running. The check engine light is off. So that's good. So now let's go under the hood. Alright, so this was a quick and easy one. The engine is running. As you can hear, I hope the camera is picking that up. It's not shaking anymore. Okay. So that's good. Now let's go back inside the vehicle and see if the check engine light is off. So right there, check engine light is off. So we're good to go, guys. Thanks for watching. See you next time.